Hello everybody, Adam Kempshall here, back with some more orchestration. We're back in the 100 Years' War, and today we are going to look at some instrumental parts. The first thing I did here was to move the double bass back to the right place, because you'll remember at the end of the last video, I had, for some reason, put the double bass here, which was silly, so I moved it back. We're going to do two more videos, including today's. We've got the one today on instrumental parts, and then next week I will do a video on proofreading, because proofreading is important, as we discovered last time. So we've got our score here, and I think everything here is pretty much as we'd like to see it for now. We might make some changes when we proofread. Now we go up here, we have all our parts to get through, and so we want to check that they are all looking good, that they're useful for the players. In some ways these are more important, even more important than the score, because this is what your players are going to have in front of them. So here's our flute one part, and we'll start here and we'll talk about some of the basics. Now we've got a few things going on here. We haven't got our 2 bars click. In fact, the first thing I'm going to set up is I'm going to set up some tabs. Right, so we're to show tabs. There we go. And then we can just add. You could add every single part, or you could just add one for your score, one for your instruments. Okay, so the first obviously missing thing is we haven't got our 2 bars click. So it's in engrave mode, it's in the template. So we just need, I'm surprised we haven't got this already, I haven't already got this set up. Go into engrave mode, going to go to our first page template. We don't need that information. Instead, we've got our 2 bars. And we have a style for that I set up previously called bars click. It needs to go over there. Okay, I think the rest of this looks fine. Layout name, project title, composer. Okay, so if we apply our changes there, now so we've got our 2 bars click, we've got the name of the instrument, and that's not looking too bad at all. I'm not entirely happy with the fact that this isn't sitting at the top. I would like that to sit at the top. I would like everything to sit at the top. No, I would think our first page doesn't need a page number. So copy that over. There we go. That looks better. Okay, I'm also going to get rid of the assistant track because we don't need to see that today. I think I was doing something with that yesterday where I did need it, but not today. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is decide how many staves we're going to have per page. I would aim for 6 unless you only have 7. Okay, so what I mean by that is have 6, but we're not going to force this onto a second page for the sake of having 6 staves here. This doesn't look too squashed at all. This looks quite reasonable. In fact, we will see on some of the other parts we might need to change stuff. We're still not entirely sure about the way that is laid out, but we're going to leave that for today. Okay, so my first thought is that this is just a little bit high. So we can select that out and the down arrow. We can move that down quite a controlled way. Okay, it's just a little bit further away from that. I'm not so happy with that slur. I think we're going to spend a lot of time in engrave mode. I just like stuff to have its space. Okay, so that's looking better. Now this is, I might just pop back to, hang on, confused myself here. I might just pop back to here. Why are we having sharps in this bar, but then flats? Got a D sharp here and an E flat up here. Okay, C8, F sharp, C8, G. Right, okay, so is this just the chords we've used? We're on a chord of, got an A in the bass there. So we've got a C and an E flat and an F sharp, so it's on a diminished chord here. I think that probably should be an E flat. What's our horns decide? We've got an E flat and an F sharp. So it's this sort of consistency. I think this is also a diminished chord. So I think all these D flats in this bar while we're here. Okay, so this was something that we thought, oh yeah, that's probably all right in the score. And filter notes by pitch, specific pitches. What we want to do is we want to take all our D sharps and turn them into E flats. Okay, and it's just consistency. Okay, it actually makes that look slightly better as well. Okay, so now we go back to our flute part. Got an E flat there, it's got an E flat there, and things like that, where we've only looking at one part at a time, suddenly become much clearer. Bar 8 has the same issue. I don't want to do that because that is a chord of B. Okay, so we do want D sharps here because this is a chord of B. This is a chord of A diminished. It's been a little while since I've done this, so I'm going to have a listen, remind myself. I think it looks better anyway. If we had a D sharp here, we'd be going E flat, we'd be going D sharp, D natural, D sharp, D natural. Okay, so yeah, you can have these discussions all day. I've got E natural here, but we're definitely keeping that one as a D sharp now. Okay, so these trills are set up sort of the film scorey way, so that it tells us above is a half tone trill or a whole tone trill. Just a setting somewhere in notation options. We don't have to worry about sort of when we see more typical classical scores, and you know we have this sort of, oh, is it a sharp, is it a flat? This removes all the ambiguity. Okay, that's fine. We've got our multi-measure rests are turning up here. Let's go back to engraved mode because that's where we're going to want to change anything if we do. Yep. The slurs are looking good. Yep. Dynamics look in the right place. I think for this flute part, you shouldn't be finding huge things to do at this point. It's just tidying up. So we're going to work with this. So this is our flute 2 and piccolo. Okay, it's clear we're starting with a flute, and it's clear we're moving to piccolo here. Okay, this is all looking a little bit squashed at the start, and I think that's more to do with the positioning of that. So again, that is out and the down arrow to do that. I think I'd like that to be not an abbreviation. I think I'd like that just to say flute. So let's use. Let's try that. Yeah, that's better. We've got, it makes it clear we're starting with the flute. You're changing to piccolo. It's a little bit close there. Okay, and just make sure that looks vaguely in line with that. Okay, we have a dynamic missing here. Now this is a problem whenever you have an instrument change. I bet if we look on bar 8 in the score at that flute part, no, it's missing its dynamic there. If we go into galley view, it's there. Now what's happened here is because this is attached to the next line, next bar, this is where the instrument change happens. So that's actually happening in the instrument change. So we just need to shove that back a bit. It probably should be there anyway, because that's where the note ends. Okay, and there's suddenly got our dynamic. Okay. That's a little bit R15. Did that really want to go down? They all go down. In fact, because that's horrendously squeaky up there. Even compositional things were spoiled. Yeah, that's sounding better. But that dynamic as well should probably hit. No, wrong one. White mode. Dynamic should hit the start of that trill. Just so it's there. If you're hiding for a reason. From some of the stuff I'm changing now is going to start faffing around with our score layout. So beyond the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, this is fine. Beyond that, I think things are looking okay. Okay, let's leave stuff in that one. Oboe, okay. I'm just going to remind you with film scoring, we do not use key signatures. You may be looking at this as somebody who is used to using key signatures and go, why have we just stick at least an F sharp in there? Showing all these F sharps. But that's not how it works with film scoring. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 again. Yeah, it's fine. Maybe I should have showed you something slightly longer. I imagine maybe the string parts might go to the second page, just so we can have a look at what's going on there. But yeah, it's just nothing glaringly obvious. I think we have dynamics where we want dynamics. Once you get into this, it can go quite quickly. Okay, and we get to the first of the transposing instruments. This is where we need to maybe look for less than comfortable looking things like this. That's an E sharp. We don't want that. We want that to be an F. Okay, that's only going to change that in the part. That's not going to have affected the score at all. The score stays in concert pitch, and the parts stay in transposed because obviously we want them to play the transposed notes. There's a lot of sharps turning up because the piece is theoretically in a sharp key. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right, we do have 8 here. This is looking a little squashed. Okay, and it's some of these runs that are pushing things further along. And what I'm thinking is that it's whether we could reduce this to 7 rather than having to go to a second page. And we can go into encode mode and we can start playing around. Remove that, that's too squashed. Yep, we don't want that. I thought that was probably going to be the wrong answer. So we can look, this is staring out at me a little bit. The Dorico gives you down the side here some idea of how full every line is. And so even if you think maybe that's not working, I can see why it's done it like this. Oh no, hang on. I can see why it's done it like this. I'm not sure we're going to move that clear could go there, but we've got to then find 3 bars worth of space. I think even on some of these, it's telling us that's 105. But without any accidentals in there, it's probably okay. Let's have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right, that's got us down to 7 now. And I don't think this looks too squished. I think if this was something full of accidentals, it would be too squished. But actually, like that, it saves having a second piece of paper to deal with. Yeah, I know this is slightly over, but I think I'm happy with that. Okay. 2, just scanning through. This sits nicer on 6 lines because there's not as much happening in clarinet 2. Okay, soon. Right, okay, so where we had these pocos, they don't transfer. The hiding of the intensity marking doesn't transfer. So we just have to watch out for them. And we've got something odd happening there as well. So that needs to go. 4, and this needs to go that way. Okay, I think that's still fairly, because there's a lot of space between that sub and that P. I don't think there's a lot, unless I throw in a space. Yeah, I think it's just there was a space after the dot. Silly little thing. This isn't like, it's clear, but I'm not the biggest fan of that. I'd actually like that to go to the next system, and then we can not worry about that. Can't always do that, obviously, but it works here without making everything else too still 7, without making everything else too squashed. That works quite nicely. This isn't ideal. We could do with a bit more space just to show what's happening with the dynamics. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to... Okay, so again, this is out and the arrow. You can just... that doesn't... There's various options. If you do shift and out, it does it a bit quicker. Just bigger movements. And so all we're doing, we're just spreading that out a bit. Okay, it makes that bar look bigger, but still not entirely happy with that. I wonder whether 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 4. Like that. Well, actually, that looks nicer. In fact, we can probably now reset the spacing on that. Come on. There you go. Yeah, that looks like maybe just a little bit more. And here. There we go. Okay, that looks nicer. All I've done there is I've just put some system breaks in a different place. We don't have to... So when we do our score, we pretty much always want 4 bars per page unless there's really not a lot going on. It's less of a worry in the parts. You can see we've got a lot of 4 bars per line here. But yeah, just do what looks sensible. Yeah. We've got the same issue here. So we now know we want to create a system break there. That's now automatically dealing with that. So this is just the same issue. We want to hide the intensity marking. We want to move that to before there. Okay, and then that's looking fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. The dynamics are lining up quite nicely as well to do that. That's possibly not. I do have a little script. Yeah, there we go. It just straightens that out. Yeah, we want our dynamics light, so that here. You have to do this in night mode. But actually, it makes it look far tidier. That's okay. That one has done it already. I think it's just where it's lower notes. This one needs to come down so it lines up with that. Okay, moving on to our horns. Now horns are in F. So again, we can have a think about whether the accidentals are correct. We want to hide our intensity marking here, and that tidies that up. It's telling us it's a little bit high. It does look a little bit high. It's our first horn player, so yeah, it's fine. And that looks okay. Right, moving on, horn 2. Yep, we know we're going to have to hide the intensity marking. I'm really just checking awkward accidentals. Part of it wants that to be an A sharp, just so we're going up a chord of whether these would be better with A sharps. You could spend a very long time debating about what key and what chord you're on, but within a bar, try and get some consistency and just what do you think? Right, A sharp, C sharp, E sharp. But that's very clearly a chord of F sharp 7 now. especially as a pianist, I find that sort of thing quite helpful. I don't know whether it helps as a horn player, where you can look at bar 4, for example, and go, yes, I can see exactly what chord or arpeggio I'm playing. There's an E sharp. Okay, so we're into trumpets now. Trumpets in B flat. That F is redundant. So this is bar 16 in the trumpet parts. Is this going to hurt anybody else? We can delete that. No. Okay, so that F is a little bit redundant. We want that already heads to there. There's another issue here as well. This looks very short. It's a massive thing. It's going from P to FF. So we maybe just want to give that note a bit more space. I think to do that one. Sometimes it's not very obvious which of these handles we want to move. He said, I want to move that note, when actually it's this one here. We want to give more space after that. Okay, that looks slightly better. That makes it clear. There's now a nice crescendo going in there. Okay, do think about breathing as well. Not you personally at the time you're doing this, but about your players. I will tend to naturally write that in the first time round, but it's worth thinking here. Now, something weird's happened here. Just start looking at number 2 and you see everything looks really squished. Okay, and there is a setting. It's in layout options. It is one of the page setup things. Vertical spacing. Okay, right down the bottom of vertical spacing, you'll see vertical justification. Okay, and it says justify the distance between staves and systems when the frame is at least this much full. And between the systems when the frame is at least 8, these settings here. Now, these work for me right now. I could change it, I could put that higher so that it would automatically spread this out, but then I think it's going to look too spread out. What I prefer to do instead is I prefer to adjust the size of the frame. I just find it gives me more control over that. So we can grab the bottom of the music frame, which is the blue one, and move that up until that suddenly springs down there. Okay, and I find, for me, that works better when I have a shorter part like this into everything else, rather than it spreading it out really wide and then having to do that anyway. Same issue. So do be careful when doing this. You are grabbing the bottom of the frame and not the frame. I have been known to do this, and you suddenly find you're moving the frame all the way up. Yep. Okay, we're whizzing through here. Right, trombones. Yep, same issue. Now, because my trombone part goes a bit higher here, I decided to go into tenor clef. I am not the best at reading tenor clef, so if I want to avoid C and F flats, I have to check slightly more carefully there. Obviously, with bigger projects, you're going to spend a lot more time doing this. This is our bass trombone. That is a G sharp. That's fine. One of them is straightening out the dynamics. We don't have to worry about that, but that's crossing into this frame, even if it had copyright information down here. What we could do, if we're concerned about that, is just move the music frame up a little bit. Okay, look, we're getting down this list. Large gong. Okay, so what I'm going to do, right, we've now reached the percussion, and because I've done all my percussion parts separately, what we actually need to do is I want to put them all on one instrument, so on one part even. So we're going to create a new part. We're going to call it percussion. Okay, and then in that part is our gong, our tom, our bass drum, and our marching snare drum. Okay, so now if we find that down here, we now have a part which has everything in it. So our percussionists can now sort this out between themselves. Okay, we probably need 3 percussionists for this. I thought there was even a point where all 4 things are happening at once. And this is a good example of where I can actually show something going across more than one page. Okay, so our running header does not say what we want it to. So that comes in the default here. We don't need load title. Okay, so what it is, what the piece is, who the composer is. Okay, so this piece of paper is randomly found. We know it's page 2 of the percussion part, and the 100 is wore by me. Okay, if somebody drops this, goes, oh no, I don't have a clue what this is. Okay, it's fairly obvious it's percussion just by looking at it. But if it wasn't, if it was a flute or clarinet part, we now know where it is, who it should be with, what piece it's about, and where it should be compared to the other pages. This is surprisingly important information. It looks like, oh yeah, it's just up there, but that's going to save a lot of time. If you lose that and somebody's looking, or somebody just randomly finds this piece of paper and goes, oh, you've lost a page, right there it is. So we could spend some time sorting this out. There's some clear issues here. We have a layout problem. We don't have the instrument names. We have a lot of blank stuff. I'd actually almost hide the blank stuff. So I'm going to go into layout options, and we're going to look the page setup, and we can do it just for this layout because there's various things going wrong here. If we go back briefly to, say, our trombone one, you see, actually, I'm thinking all of these are lacking bar numbers on every bar number. Okay, so let's do that first, one thing at a time. So bar numbers on all our parts, we'll have them all selected. There we go. We want them every bar. There we go, and some of them are a little bit hyperactive. Align bar numbers across the width of the system. Thank you. There we go. Okay, that's looking better. Okay, so back to layout options. Stays in system. So here's the one we want. Okay, all labels on the first system and abbreviated labels on the rest of them. Okay, which is far more useful. Okay, that's helpful. So we're going to go back to setup, and we're just going to rename this guy just to snare drum. If you're not changed, it's because that's the name of the instrument. There we go. That's a big difference now. So I don't want to see. And that was only called Tom, so it's just slightly more specific about what we are or what we're using. Okay, we want a low tom there. Okay, this is out, and maybe we do need that 4th page. Okay, so the other thing we were going to do, actually, if we go back into layout options, is we were going to do something we don't do in a score, but we were going to hide scores, staves that we're not using. Okay, we are going to put in our system dividers as well. Staves in a system. One of these system dividers. There we go. Hide empty staves, but I can't find the setting. Hide the staves. Hide after the first system. There we go. Okay, we don't need it there. It's now showing us just what's playing at any point. Okay, so we need to have a large gong, a low drum, a bass drum, and a snare drum ready. Yep, we need those things, but they're not all playing all at the same time. Okay, so I think that makes life slightly clearer. Like, this is something you could discuss for some time, I'm sure. Could you really not just go onto the previous system? I do wonder just whether the gaps between our staves are just... some of our spacing could be better here. Yeah, I think it is vertical spacing we could look at, just because they look quite squashed together, and then there's a huge great gap. Inter-system gaps, let's take that down to 5. Too much. Let's try 8. 10 look massive. That's better. That's much better. I think maybe even No, 9.5. Pushing everything back together again. Do it in fractions. 9 1/4. Yeah, that's better. Okay, moving on. We can go to our timpani part. So our timpanist has got their numbers there. Their numbers, their letters. Okay, that's going to need to come up quite a way to there. There we go. Oh god, we've got that as well here. I don't think that's an issue. I think there's plenty of space there. It's counting. So it's not too much of a problem. Right, violin 1. After all that. Now, yes, this probably needs to go to a second page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It looks a little squashed. So we're going to create a frame break there. 6. Okay, that's far better. Now I think we sorted out our accidentals already. Okay, we just got this spacing issue now. Okay, violin 2. Same issue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Bar 28. Create a frame break. With the string parts, check that all your divisi and unison instructions are in place. They don't ask, is that a double stop? Do we need a divisi here? Is this just the first part? Yola. Okay, so of course we're in alto clef. So some of those checks for weird accidentals. I don't think it's going to be a worry here. Hang on, what's the viola? The right, it didn't go 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, cello. Okay, high intensity marking, right? Yeah, we've got the same problem we had in some of the other bass parts. 4, 5, 6, 7. This looks a little squashed just where it's dividing. In fact, we've got a combination of issues we've had elsewhere. So we're going to move that down there. But whether this would look tidier. It was all in the same voice. I've changed my mind back from what I did previously. I said previously I didn't want to have too many unisons and divisis everywhere. And then we'll create a system break there. That's actually better than the moving it to the next bar. That can kind of force extra system breaks in. Okay, they're not dividing at all. Okay, so I think I'm going to leave that there. And next week I'll do one more video on this where we will look at proofreading. We will do that outside of Dorico. In fact, what we will do, we will start with Dorico's proofreading function, and then we will go and print this to a PDF and look at it that way, because for some reason suddenly we'll find a lot more things to look at that perhaps we're not happy with, because it's very difficult to see this in any mode. Like right mode's probably the cleanest, but we still got these signs, and it's just easy to look at it completely clean, as it will do once it prints. So keep an eye out for that, and I shall see you next time.